Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Big session. Yes, ladies and can you hear me, Dr. Alexandra?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Yes.
What a great, wonderful to have you around this evening. And straight we arrive from Kigali, Rwanda, Africa. The fourth week of a living archive. Now to conclude what we have been with along the May series, as we've been assessing the way to shifting from people, the way of perceiving culture as a memory, toward the way to treat it, to design with it as it is really in economic infrastructure, particularly from today's session, as we are assessing how these dialogues we had from week 1, week 2, up to the week 3, how we are going to shifting from all of this dialogue to the system as we designing ethical, inclusive, and regenerative living archives for future regenerations. And allow me to start right now as we ready to go with our timing. It's a grateful to have you, Nargis and Dr. Alexandra in the house. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much for having invited me. I'm delighted to be here with you today.
Thank you so much, Nargis. Alexandra, thank you. And so straight away to our today's session, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start this as we 2 minutes past 3 in Rwanda. We'd like to say good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone joining us across different parts of the world. Welcome to the concluding session of the African Living Archive May 2026 series. As we prepare to begin, we invite you to settle into the shared global space and tell us the comments where you're joining today, where you're joining us from today. And from Kigali, a city calling both memory and imagination, we welcome you. Over the past month, the African Living Archive series have bowed together the voices across culture, disciplines, geographies, and generations to explore questions of memory, identity, governance, sovereignty, belonging, and generative futures. Together, we have reflected not only to archives, but on humanity itself. And today we are live at a concluding dialogue, from dialogue to systems, because the future will not only be engineered through technology, it will also be shaped by how human remembers. And so we ask ourselves as we openly starting this session, who designs the future memory systems of humanity? And as artificial intelligence, digital infrastructures, and the systems of governance increasingly shape culture, ownership, identity, and memory, communities must have a voice in deciding the systems that define tomorrow. This conversation invites us to move from preservation to participation, from archives to ecosystems, and from memory to regenerative futures. At its heart, a living archive is not really simply about the story. It's about designing futures community can live in. And perhaps most importantly, it is about honoring the generations and the knowledge keepers who perceived memory long before digital system existed. It's a great pleasure and honor to have Nargis Kimun Na joining us from Belgium. We are honored to welcome you, Largest Mumna. I think I'm trying to pronounce it well your name.
It's perfect.
All right. Thank you so much. Independent curator. She's an independent curator and a researcher working across memory, archives, diaspora studies, cultural strategy, and international collaborations. Her work invites us to rethink governance, ethics, and belonging through more inclusive and regenerative systems. Welcome, Nargis, once again.
Thank you.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, let's join our hands together to welcome our very own Dr. Alessandra Solea from Italy. As she's just joining us, we welcome her as an educator, global advisor, and education leader whose work mainly focus on leadership, inclusion, and transformative educational futures. Welcome, Alessandra. It's a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
As the rest of the speakers will be joining, I'd like to go straight to our today's session. And thank you once all as you're joining us. To begin our conversation, I'd like to invite each of our speakers to reflect on this opening question. Alessandra Nargis, what does a living archive mean within the future of humanities, cultural, social, and digital systems? I was addressing this question to both of you. What does really a living archive mean within the future of humanities, cultural, social, and digital systems? And Nargis, you can go fast, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Well clear and crystal.
Okay. The future of living archives. Well, before asking the question of a possible future, maybe we can reflect on the words themselves. What does life mean? I think that biology and philosophy still fail to provide a complete definition of what life is. So also, we would like to avoid any romantic vision of life or archives. So maybe we should start with studying the oppositions that lie within the archival ecosystem. Yeah, I'll start with this.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And as you're trying to shape it, as be going ahead with it, and yeah, I hope we're going to explore further along the way. Dr. Alessandra, what does living archive mean within the future of humanities, cultural, social, and digital systems?
Okay, so I will give my perspective from the educational point of view. Being directly involved in cultural management, in cultural projects, overall in cultural sector, I would say that living archives mean a shift from the passive or traditional historical preservation that has been, let's say, implemented for so many years, for so many decades, into dynamic cultural activation. And we notice this at the level of different cultural institutions. In Italy, for example, there is the situation of Cinecittà. Probably everyone, or if you haven't, you can do a research in relation to Cinecittà, which is Archivio Storico Luce, is part of the UNESCO Memory of the World Register. And it's a living archive because all the materials in terms of footage can be used by filmmakers, artists, in order to create different documentaries, different materials. Besides that, we have a lot of projects that are being implemented, and I would say that this is a wonderful approach in order to raise awareness, but also in order to educate the younger generations into the spirit of preserving the cultural heritage. So this is my just a couple of notes related to what a living archive is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alessandra. Thank you so much, Nargis. And back to you, Nargis. I appreciate the humanity and ethical depth within that reflection, particularly such kind of an emphasis on memory as a space and the belonging and the responsibility. And I'd love to connect that thought to Alessandra's perspective of her leadership, inclusion, and educational futures as her daily works. And back to you, Alessandra. How do you see institutions and learning spaces contributing to more living and participatory archive systems?
I would say it's important, it's necessary. However, we are just at the moment living a process of transformation. So we have tendencies and institutions that are guiding, and they have a lot of initiatives and a lot of projects implementing them, and great creative ideas. But we also have a lot of struggle in terms of even cultural institutions who are not aware of their role, and they are just accepting to be like the gatekeepers of cultural heritage without understanding how they can make it more fluid, more accessible, and to involve more the younger generations. And a big threat that I'm noticing nowadays is related to the lack of education, first of all. And I'm not referring to specific cultural management education, but just the basic cultural education that should arrive at different age categories through like the public system to the schools. And unfortunately, the younger generations, there are so many challenges and so many opportunities that they can find through different types of tools, digital tools included. It's the danger is to lose the real meaning and to understand the real importance of cultural heritage, not only understood as something that we need to preserve, but as something that is alive. Because just consider that we are actually making the culture nowadays, in this moment even, we are creating the cultural, the culture. We are part of the cultural sector, and we are creating the cultural heritage for the next generations. Because culture is also us, no? Culture is also deeply rooted in our activities, our communities, our societies, everything that we do. So we have an important role, either as cultural institutions or even as cultural professionals directly involved in the sector.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alessandra. And it shows how the corporate partnership is really immense, particularly what does education may contribute much. And what stands out in your reflection is the importance of inclusion, simple as policy, but as infrastructure. And Aika, I'd love to bring you into the conversation through the lens of innovation and creative economies. How do we ensure future systems remain centered while still embracing technological transformation? Did you get my question? Nargis? To you, Nargis, sorry.
Okay.
I was asking, how do we ensure future systems remain human-centered while still embracing technological transformation? You can go with it, Nargis.
Excuse me, can you repeat the question, please?
Thank you. I was drawing from what Alessandra said about how this reflection, mostly it is concerning the importance of inclusion, not simply as a policy, but as infrastructure. And I'd like you to have your perspective, Nargis, on this conversation through the lens of innovation and the creative economies. How do we ensure future systems remain human-centered while still embracing technological transformation? I think you can draw from the museum's perspective versus archives, and how have been within the indigenous knowledge systems. So, and drawing from there, we can see how we can embracing these systems, but the sometimes too human-centered as we're heading within digital transformation and digitalization and globalization at large. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Alessandra, as maybe she's experiencing the connectivity issue, as she'll be back, we may continue to draw this. Actually, mostly people understand museum and they understand archives. Sometimes library comes in. However, they may even lose the tendency to understand what does it really means and how are these institutions mostly likely to be so-called the governmental, international organizations, institutions, and how are they differentiate and what do normally a human, how does a human-centered approach exposed within these institutions?
I would just like to give you an example. And I think this is the best approach so far that has been done with the extremely successful. There is the Archaeological Museum of Naples. So it's an archaeological museum. It has an important cultural heritage that is being preserved. However, we also notice what is the involvement of the younger generations when we speak about this type of cultural heritage, especially archaeology, So there is not so much interest and involvement. What the museum has done, because a big question is audience engagement, audience development, audience engagement. This is the biggest struggle, but also the biggest problem that all the cultural institutions are facing nowadays. So the museum has decided to create a video game that is called Father and Son. It's a very well done, focuses on storytelling. So it's like a father telling his child, like a legacy, in a letter, and speaking to the child about the history, the history, about the greatness of the country, about different moments throughout history. This video game has been extremely successful also because it involves different layers, different levels. So, for example, in order to unlock the next level, you have to move to go to the museum, to follow a specific itinerary, and from there you can move towards the next levels. It has been a blockbuster. So this is not something extremely new. It has been done a couple of years ago. Extremely successful because it was specifically created with the support of the museum, having the right designers and having the right people involved directly in this. And after that, it has generated a revolution in terms of gamification. So many institutions, many museums have decided to include the digital technology through games, to video games, in order to engage more with the younger generations, because you can imagine the kids have got crazy about playing the game and about learning a lot. So this is a way through which, for example, the traditional cultural institutions can engage using digital technology with the younger generations. This is just to try to answer to your specific questions. Other projects for sure can be done. There are so many examples. Cultural institutions usually have archives or cultural heritage that must be preserved, but in the same time shouldn't be hidden. It shouldn't be part of this is past, this is full of dust. Someone might be interested in seeing and finding out more, but in general is not so attractive to the general public. By trying to introduce this, to present it to different types of programs, to different types of activities. For example, there is the Living Archive Floating Islands in Puglia. That is a collaboration between the Puglia region and Fondazione Barba Varli, and it preserved the artistic legacy of the Odin Teatret and director Eugenio Barba through touring exhibitions, digital startups, live performances. So it just using a lot of activities to engage and to present and to preserve everything to the wide public. There is even the situation of Mole Antonelliana, which is the cinema museum in Turin, an amazing opportunity if you haven't been to Italy or to Turin to go and to visit it. It is a history of the cinema. So just everything becomes so real. You just get engaged and you just learn so much about the history of the film industry, but as well as about different perspectives, different blockbusters, different movies. So this is also a way, of course, to engage and to be part of this. This is just my 2 cents related to how we can engage and how we can contribute to the preservation of the cultural heritage.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Alessandra. Signor, grazie. You really explained it very well, and this is what really you remind us that innovation without cultural grounding risks to becoming disconnected from community realities. And as we've been seeing how the systems perspective into emerging dialogue, you've been emphasizing how the museum is no longer only preservation, however, engaging and bringing back the lives of these artifacts which are exhibited along the conversation, the dialogues that they immense through today's administrative strategies. And back to the same question, but within the governance perspective, what you think could be the kinds of governance and systems thinking are necessary if the living archives are becoming sustainable infrastructure for future generations? There's a systems and governance beyond of starting these massive experiments, the way to integrate within education as a resources, the visual, the conceptual based education now is on the trend. How do you think really there's governance and systems are necessary if there's the archives that are becoming sustainable infrastructure for future generations?
Well, I would say that first of all, there is a need of a proper framework that must be designed, especially to support this process. UNESCO is doing a lot in this sense. So UNESCO focuses on the main trends and aspects related to cultural sector, cultural heritage, cultural institutions, preservation as well. And they specify the need of creating the proper opportunities. Now, identifying the opportunities and creating not only that, but from the policy perspective, having the right frameworks. Now, because you need to have frameworks, and then you need within the frameworks to be able to develop projects. But what happens and what is somehow lacking at this point is the attitude of the singular countries. Some countries are still struggling to understand the importance of the cultural sector now. Others are doing some steps ahead, so they understand that, for example, cultural heritage is essential for cultural tourism, an important part of the tourism industry. However, I don't see so many innovative projects, innovative initiatives that can be and are being successfully implemented. So what can the government do? For sure, they have to focus on supporting the cultural sector, understanding the importance, the proper importance of the cultural heritage and the cultural institutions, and supporting educational programs, because through proper educational programs we can prepare the younger generations to acknowledge, to learn, and basically to be directly involved within different types of projects. This is absolutely important, essential. If this is going to happen, well, little by little it's happening, but I don't think it has the right speed. So maybe we can also raise awareness from this perspective and try to speak about the fact that culture is not something that happened in the past, but it's something that we are living today. No, we are fully immersed and connected with different cultural realities. Culture is part of us, of our lives. Cultural diversity is absolutely important, not to speak about inclusion. No? So we speak, and usually within the cultural sector, there is a lot of the perspective of we are inclusive, we think about diversity, but realistically speaking, I think not everyone is properly implementing this type of concepts and this type of elements within their policy. So this is another aspect that we can raise awareness of. And then something important, just to explain clearly all the terms and what this is about. No? So we need people like advocates coming from the cultural sector, either they are artists, either they are cultural professionals, and to speak widely about the challenges, to speak about the importance, to speak about why this is necessary, to speak about the role of education and arts education, overall cultural education, in understanding better the challenges as well as the opportunities, as well as the importance of cultural heritage. And I would say that this is something that it still must be supported and must be still implemented. Yeah.
Wow. Drawing from what you've been saying and as in alignment with the previous sessions. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Alessandra. It really shows that one of the powerful threads emerging from this maze conversation is that archives are no longer passive repositories. They are becoming infrastructure of our identity, systems of participations. They are spaces of negotiation and ecosystems where communities shape belonging, ethics, and future together. This transforms culture itself from something preserved to something actively shaping civilization. And to everyone joining us live from around the world, thank you for being part of this conversation, because everyone present today is a part of shaping how future generations will understand culture, memory, belonging, and humanity itself. We invite you to continue engaging with us in the comments. To you, what does really a living archive mean to your community? And what should humanity protect as we begin digital infrastructure? And who should shape the future memory systems of humanity? And thank you so much, Alessandra. As we're coming back, I'd like to see the way to the conclusion of today's session. And I'd like to invite you to assess from your perspective what must really humanity protect, what must really humanity redesign, and what does really humanity must reimagine today to ensure more ethical, inclusive, and regenerative futures tomorrow. And you've been actually stated it previously that this inclusion, we may go beyond of the inclusivity, diversity, and equity. However, this belongingness is really critical to understand how this we perceive as a memory may become an economic infrastructure toward these generative futures. And what you think does really this humanity protect, redesign, and reimagine it today to ensure we are heading to the more ethical, inclusive, and regenerative futures?
Well,
thank you.
I would say that, first of all, it's about memory. When we speak about cultural heritage, we speak about memory connected to our history, our traditions, our values. This is why it's absolutely essential, and this is policy that has been implemented at the level of the European Union in order to support the cultural sector overall, financially speaking. No? And this is why the public institutions, the cultural public institutions active in Europe, either we speak about museums or we speak about performing arts institutions. By institution, I mean public institution organization. They are supported because their role is essential towards preserving our roots, our identities, our traditions. While in the same time, it's also quite interesting as we discover the cultural diversity, we love it, no? So we are used with our traditions and the way we have been raised and the education we have received. And we know exactly who we are, thanks also to the cultural heritage. So it's about also our identity. But in the same time, discovering cultural diversity means to be able to share, to open up our perspectives and to be able to understand perspectives and things, opportunities that are different with respect to our own. In terms of, I would like to make just a small reference. I'm a cultural educator, so being a cultural educator, I have tried to create a community. This was my first aim, my desire. This is also the reason for which I have decided to embrace education, working within the cultural management. So my perspective has always been, we need to create a community. We need to create a community with artists, cultural professionals that are aware of the challenges, that are also able to create a strong network, to connect, and also to develop, to implement wonderful projects. We also need to create an excellent cultural management generation that is going to be able to deal with so many projects and so many challenges throughout the same time. In terms of economic perspectives, I can actually add something that is quite interesting. So when we speak about archives, and not only archives, but in a general sense, also the cultural heritage, this is an important aspect that attracts cultural tourists. So speaking about economy, tourism is an essential industry that supports, economically speaking, every country in the world. So having a richness of cultural heritage, as it happens in Italy, means a plus, an important tourism industry that focuses on the cultural heritage, which is absolutely important, essential. It contributes a lot to the economic growth. It also supports and endorses the development of the cities, the urban, the rural areas through different types of projects in order to enhance, of course, the importance and the role of the cultural heritage. So this was just my my input. I hope I managed to answer to your question. If not, please let me know.
Actually, I may say 100%. And this approach from your experience really showing what you're contributing towards this shift paradigm of dialogues to design of the systems. And sometimes we found people around in convening the international collaboration, particularly within the STEM. I mean, 17th SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And this partnership for goals could shifting from local to international. And sometimes this win-win is very critical. And when you assess the way, let's have an example to African Union and the European Union, we've found a lot of dramatic works along the preservation. And sometimes mostly comes in a capacity building. However, the execution of this tangible project becomes a bit of a mess. And as we're shifting from these dialogues, we can not only moving ahead without talking to these international conference meetings, which sometimes having a table, a round table. However, the culture, the future of digital humanities, people are leaving the room without mentioning any, and they know it's core of any progress and activities they are doing along the way. What you think does a corporate partnership may contributing toward these feasibility of these systems we are trying to really shaping, in which our archive may become and being alive, rebirth, reincarnated. Yeah, thank you.
I would say that the most successful model that has functioned in a couple of situations, it represents the partnership public-private. So there are many examples with extremely successful cultural projects. For example, the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. This is also known as the Bilbao effect. Is a widely known project that has been, let's say, concluded throughout the 90s in an area that was totally deserted. So this is quite interesting because, you know, you have an area of an important city that is struggling with a lot of, you know, criminality, with a shipyard that was deserted, with an industry that has collapsed, and with a lot of people who lost their jobs. What was the solution that the government found was to build a museum, which is the Guggenheim Museum from Bilbao. Now, you can imagine this museum was built with a public-private partnership. They have invested a lot of money, approximately 100 million euros. So the issue is you have a big problem, economic problem, and the solution you find is to build a museum. It sounds a little bit crazy, no? So everyone is struggling, and you just come with this idea, we need to invest more money to build a museum. Now, this was a big challenge because you don't know in this specific situation if that is going to be a success or not. What has happened is that the museum is extremely successful. Right now, they are involving millions of tourists going there precisely in order to visit the museum, to experience that. Not only the museum in itself, that is an important cultural heritage place, but as well as the project that have been created around the museum. Because if you have one element, then one element is going to attract the other. So the entire area has been, let's say, redeveloped, regenerated through a cultural project. So this is an example of how we can connect this type of situations. Why private-public partnership and why this is the best solution? Because I have heard about many projects. Some projects come from the private sector, I mean in cultural projects. Other projects are coming from the public sector. What happens in the private sector is that if you don't have a right strategy as well as a good management perspective, you risk in a specific moment to shut down. No? If you don't know on what type of financial support you can build your project and you don't have this my flexible mindset as a manager, you are going to, for sure, fail with the project. While in the case of the public institutions, they usually they have money that are being granted for specific projects. They are also extremely important. But what happens there is that once the money are not going to be distributed any longer towards those specific projects, the project may as well turn off. So a public-private partnership ensures that there is support coming from the public sector, but in the same time, there is support as well as investments and interest from the private sector as well. So there is the right balance between having something that is sustainable from the financial perspective and something that is also going to have a specific development strategy. First, it deals with issues also raised by the private sector, because in the end, we have this type of partnerships in our societies, public-private. So it's absolutely essential. So the biggest projects, including the Guggenheim in Bilbao, have been created with the both support of the public and private sectors.
Well explained, as it is supposed to really be. In corporate partnership may go beyond institutions to institutions. However, these sharing among private public partnerships is really immense, and we think what private sectors are contributing in each and every countries, and even though the venture capitals are yet really assessing the cultural innovation as something to generate the return on investment. However, we know along the way with this advocacy, this awareness, they are about to understand why we are really contributing. Thank you so much, Dr. Alessandra. And before we conclude, I'd like to return to you a bit for a fine forward-looking reflection. Alessandra, as institutions, communities, and emerging technologies continue reshaping knowledge, actually, particularly for institutions, you talk a bit about government institutions. However, the educational institution also, I think, would like something to be revamped and fine-tuned to matching what culture is really contributing, not only for preservation, but also nurturing other sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and even the innovation at large. And communities are playing a lot. You know what does community-based tourism is all about. And the emerging technologies is what we see the digital humanities may really continue to reshaping how knowledge and the memory are produced and shared. And from that, what practical shifts or commitment do you believe are mostly needed to build more inclusive, human-centered, and regenerative knowledge systems for future generations through that boundaryless heritage preservation collaboration? Let's say, because then the next living archive series is going to be how to breed up a boundaryless heritage preservationist ecosystem, and I think this will be concerning your response. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry. The question is very complex. I would say, just to answer directly, there is the need to raise awareness, first of all, towards the importance of culture and cultural heritage, and overall also the archives, why they are necessary, why they are important, and this should be also shared with all the decision makers, policy makers as well. Tell them, this is important because. In terms of digital technologies involve a lot the arts. So arts can be seen as a sort of an environment. Now you speak about STEAM. And STEAM before, they didn't involve arts. So arts were being considered as something put aside in terms of university and education, and something that, even considered not so important as all the rest. Now the STEAM has transformed, and it includes arts. It's STEAM plus A plus arts, because arts, and especially creativity, innovation, design, thinking perspectives, design overall, even the metaverse, now they involve a lot the flexibility, the creativity of the arts professionals. So arts is part of that. How the museum should cope? Well, how the university should cope with that? Well, universities are also including arts. Some universities, not all of them, are also including arts throughout their curriculum now. It's not necessary to become an arts professional, but they are also including it because it is essential now for the way students develop, enhance their knowledge, as well as their capabilities. And this is an important part. I also am an advocate towards the exposure of children, and this is K to 12 now, so it's not necessarily university, but schools in general, exposing them to arts and to arts education, because it contributes towards the enhancement of their capabilities, their inclusion in societies, their knowledge as well. And it is also called, in scientific terms, neuroplasticity of the brain, which is the brain has the capability to absorb new information as well as to connect, and different parts of the brain that usually we are not using now, if not in the case of arts. So just to answer, this is how the universities are reacting. Not all the universities, I have to state. I have excluded from this the universities that focus on arts, which is not the situation in this. But I am also teaching at a business school. So just imagine that I'm a program director and a teacher at a business school, focusing with a lot of masters in programs dealing with business, finances, data, health management, HR. Well, in the same time, I'm coordinating a master's degree that focuses on arts management. And I have to tell you that there is a lot of interest. I have many students. I'm happy to have them. They are passionate young people who want to dedicate their lives and their activities to the cultural sector, to support the cultural sector, to come with amazing innovative projects. And this is why I'm so happy about it, because there is a new interest towards supporting the cultural sector. There is an interest, however, we are still having a lot of aspects to consider, as well as many things must also be properly developed and properly understood. And here we go back to the policymakers and the way they understand to support us or to support the cultural sector.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Alessandra. Actually, you really emphasize much on it. And I'd like to have a deep dive hints on it a bit on how do you think education and leadership spaces move beyond the preservation alone to actively empower communities as co-creators of living futures? Because some days ago, I came with a drawing from this journal of a living archive, and the idea of a curation beyond the museum comes in, because mostly the museum concept, you assess the archives and you display what you need with the story you'd like to display to let people really understand what concerning with all of this gathered information and what you choose to visualize. However, when it comes to the curatorial, it's all about these living daily digital age lifestyle of content creation. So I think we may embrace the content curation and storytelling within the broad perspective of curatory and curatorship, so that we can see a life beyond a life, a curatorship beyond the medium. So what do you think really the education and leadership spaces move beyond preservation alone to actively empower communities as co-creators of living futures? How do you think they can go with it?
Well, do you refer to specifically specific education programs or education in general?
Education spaces, we mean the higher education institutions, the TVET, I mean those with workforce, how to prepare really the future generation, particularly for the educational system as a spaces. And what does leadership spaces? Because we found most of the countries are now having the youth centers. How are they embedding this? How are the museums within this new concept of UNESCO, of intercultural dialogue within the live museum perspective? How do you think are really contributing to empower communities as co-creators of living futures?
Okay, thank you. Well, this is a very good question. I'm seeing that. I think we are all experiencing and we are noticing this. Many institutions are creating, are implementing youth programs, programs focusing on the younger generations. What is the focus and what is the reason on that? Of course, first of all, is to educate. Now, this is the role of the cultural institutions, to educate the younger generation, to expose them to different forms of cultural content. Besides that, I would say that their role is also essential for the community. So nowadays, if we have to think about the cities and if we have to think about the communities, at the very center of every community, there are the cultural institutions. Either there is one, or there are just a couple, or many. They are part of the cultural ecosystem. And this is a concept absolutely essential and important nowadays. So it's like I have mentioned previously, like arts part of the STEAM or arts part of the digital technologies as the best environment. The same happens in our daily life, in our societies. So at the very center of societies, at the very center of the communities, at the very center of the big cities even, we have the cultural ecosystem, which is the cultural institutions that are part of that. And they attract, they involve the community now in different ways. The communities enjoy being part of this ecosystem because it improves the lifestyle, because it engages, because it educates, because also it prepares. It just includes the younger generations, kids of every age being part of this. So the role of the cultural institutions is also to educate. I would see like this type of youth programs or programs involving children in different cultural activities. Many important institutions are doing that. MoMA is doing that through a series of education projects. Who else? The Royal Opera House is doing that. Teatro alla Scala di Milano is doing that as well in different ways. They have different educational programs addressing different different sectors within the cultural and creative industries. Now, in terms of leadership, because this is another concept that you have mentioned, I consider arts and the exposure and arts education, the exposure to arts is extremely important in order to enhance specific abilities in human beings in general, not to speak even more in the case of younger generations, which is emotional intelligence is an important element. The way we understand to communicate, so communication abilities, communication skills, as well as understanding how to build bridges, understanding how to interact with the others. So in terms of what arts and culture teaches us, it's a lot in terms of social integration, but as well as leadership capabilities, because what is a leader in the end? So a leader is a person that inspires, a person that not only focuses on having a vision clearly defined, but as well as tries to understand very well the people around him or her. Tries to needs to have charisma, needs to involve people, motivate people, empower people. We can also call it like this: empower people, either they are employees, collaborators, directly involved in different types of activities. So yes, absolutely. In order to properly, fully develop as human beings, we need to be exposed to this type of realities. And this is why, speaking about cultural heritage, speaking about, in a general sense, cultural sector, speaking about ecosystems, speaking about cultural institutions, this is their role, and this is why we need to continue working, to have the same passion into being involved in this type of projects, as well as to raise awareness whenever we can, to advocate for the role of for this type specific sector for the all of us, for the members of every community.
Wow, what a wonderful reflection, what a wonderful conversation to have, Dr. Lisandra, as you're concluding to the maze series, as you've been seeing, away to shifting from perceiving culture as a memory, however, something to design, to create with, and to perceive it as a creative infrastructure. Alessandra, sometimes we go with the experience and could be kind of a case study that may more people really learning from. When we mean a living archive, we mean this passion, we mean this knowledge, we mean these cultural practitioners who always thinking how to transmit this knowledge from generation to another one. Intergenerational learning is really critical for the sustainable preservation. And along the way, as we're concluding, I've been seeing what you're doing, particularly for your LinkedIn, and also that you mentioned that you glow between two cultural capitals, Bucharest and Rome, and turned that dual perspective into a career connecting people, institutions, and ideas across the border. From that perspective, you'll be sharing us what does really diversity, equity, and inclusion means. However, without really losing who you are.
Yeah.
Still,
No,
the
this is
EEI, however, belongingness is still around, and you've assessed from and you draw your passion, your calling, and your life mission. Now you're serving. Let's have this connectivity and see what does Rural Living Archive means through your journey. Thank you.
well, thank you for the question. This is a question that I have asked myself many times.
Okay.
It's not a simple question, especially when you have to live between two or more cultures. And often you also, in the first moments, it's like when you know only one culture and then you have to adapt to different cultures, you might even encounter sort of an identity crisis when you feel you are losing something, but in the same time you feel you are gaining something as well. No, so I would say from my perspective, my personal experience is right now I feel very comfortable because I have succeeded to arrive at a specific level where I'm able to integrate different perspectives. Now I know well at least two cultures where I'm active between Bucharest and between Rome. They are not so different in terms of the cultural heritage. But in the same time, there are many differences as well now that we need to accept and we need to adapt to. Now, from my own perspective, is diversity is essential because when you succeed to adapt to different cultures, when your mindset starts to accept aspects that you haven't been raised with, you can be sure that your knowledge, your understanding, your perspectives are going to change, but are going to improve. No, and this is absolutely important, essential. And I would also like to give a piece of advice to every cultural professional that might be listening to us. If you have the possibility to travel, if you have the possibility to to study, to be involved in different projects in different parts of the world, just do it. It's absolutely important, essential. It's a must because it's the way for us to understand and to accept different elements, to filter them to our own perspective and to enrich ourselves. Only in that moment we are going to be able to say, look, I have managed now to filter different elements. I have succeeded to identify the elements that suit me now as a professional, as a personality, to understand the world and the challenges in different ways. So yeah, it's not an easy task when you have to divide yourself between different parts of the world. However, just consider that being an artist or being a cultural professional means actually this. Means to be open-minded and to be available to travel when you need to travel, to work in different parts of the world, to work with different peoples, to work even on same projects but with different perspectives and different cultural understanding, and it brings many challenges, absolutely, but in the same time it's so rewarding, it's so amazing. It's something that in terms of experience and knowledge, I would say that you can't encounter anything that can pair with this, that can be the same level with this.
Wow. Dr. Alexandra, you're just simply, literally speaking, you're just a living archive. And from drawing your attention and really understanding your mission and what does a responsible citizenship must look like, you founded this amazing work from the academic work, maybe as an inspiration, to become this surrogate management and surrogate education, both for the organization but to develop the next generation of arts leaders, connect cultural professionals across borders. And as the next next array series of June will be concerning with how to build up this a boundaryless ecosystem of heritage preservationists. What has really inspired you to create such kind of social collective ventures in which you said I may contribute maybe to inspiring the next generation?
Well,
And yeah, through the blurred image of shifting from cultural memories and as we're concluding with the today's session, you already know that we shifting from dialogue to breathing the systems. So you assess various skills, experiences, the calling, recognition, self-esteem, as we've been saying, and how did you came up with this amazing idea of empowering the next arts readers?
Well, I was actually, as a background, I not only that I'm a I'm a musician, but I'm also I have been quite active in management, cultural management for many years. Now, when I have created Solar Art Management, which is my first company, my focus on was towards I want to have this freedom to decide, to create projects, to connect people, to use my creativity and my experience into something that I consider to be might be important, interesting, and even why not beautiful in a specific artistic way. Then later on, I have added the education component. So I was not thinking about this was not on my, let's put it like this, necessarily on my bucket list in the first priorities, the top priorities. But it just came out. I have started to teach cultural management, and then I discovered that while I'm teaching, I also learn about about a lot of things about myself. No, so it's not only about teaching and supporting a younger generation of cultural managers, but it's also about learning who I am, learning my challenges, how do I understand, and also learn new things, or I'm relearning the older things to the eyes of my students. Now, Solar Art Education came later on as a project where actually it was coined, let's say, in general lines last year. But this year I'm just focusing on developing a couple of projects that if you are going to follow me on LinkedIn, just to make a little bit of publicity now, I'm just taking advantage. You can find out about the projects that I will intend and we will intend to implement. Hopefully, this is going to become an important educational platform. We aim to have a lot of, you can also check our website, Solar Art Education. We are thinking about developing a large array of projects involving direct experience, involving a lot as well, the living archives, the cultural heritage, tangible and intangible in different forms and in different ideas. And hopefully, we are also going to be, everyone things like this and hopes like this, especially the entrepreneurs, to be successful in what we are going to do. But actually, this comes also from a need. There is a need at the level of the cultural professionals of the cultural sector in order to provide proper education within this sector. And I would say that we have, a project that is going to be implemented, starts to be implemented from next month. We are going to have two projects. One actually involves professionals from Europe and India. This one is going to start on the 15th of July, is going to last 1 month. We are going to do it online, speaking about digital technology. This is the very first edition, while the second one is going to involve more wellness activities. I'm not going to disclose that because we haven't started a publicity yet. But however, just keep in touch on LinkedIn, and if you want to find out more, this is going to take place in Italy, in Tuscany. It's a beautiful, beautiful region of Italy. Then we are going to have other projects, starting happening in Italy, which is going to be another one in September, taking place in Rome. And from there, we have other projects. They are still at the phase of designing, creative part. And once we have decided on implementing, you are going to see, and you can also enroll if you want. You can participate, absolutely. And we would love to have you there. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexander. Actually, this shows what breeding the ecosystem from dialogue means. You doing an amazing work, Solea Arts or Educations, and how your journey have evolved since day one up to now. It's really amazing, and the best of which the international collaboration and onboarding is really amazing. And thank you for this opportunity and honor to be part of the next sessions and cohort. And as we conclude the African Living Archive May 2026 series, we do so with deep gratitude, reflection, and a renewal imagination for what lies ahead. Over the past 4 weeks, this journey has brought together voices, ideas, communities, and perspectives across continents in a collective exploration of memory, identity, governance, creativity, belonging, and regenerative futures. In week one, we began by questioning how archives can evolve beyond preservation into living archive and participatory systems. In week two, we explored culture, digital sovereignty, and the importance of communities shaping their own narratives and futures. And in week three, we reflected on the heritage, innovation, storytelling, and the role of collaborative ecosystem in a sustaining collective memory across regeneration, as we've been assessing who really owns the archives in a digital age. And today, in week four, we arrived at a defining question: who designed the future memory systems of humanity? As we've been assessing what these dialogues can help to shape the future systems in which, responding to regenerative cultural economic ecosystem. And this concluding dialogue reminds us that archives are not passive repositories of the past. They are infrastructures of humanity, spaces of belonging, and living system shaping the future we leave behind. We also extend our sincere appreciation to all our invited speakers and contributors across the series. While some speakers were unfortunately unable to join us live today and previously due to various circumstances, we do provide you their support and presence within this growing ecosystem. And we especially grateful to Signora Alessandra Solea for joining us and calling this concluding dialogue with insights, grace, and generosity. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Alessandra.
Thank you so much. It was a delight to talk to you, and it has been an honor to be invited to be part of this.
Thank you so much. As the IRAGE Corps continues this journey, today is not an ending. It is the opening of a wide horizon. And so we invite you all to prepare for the next chapter, the borderless ecosystem of heritage preservation. It is going to be our June series. And a growing global ecosystem connecting communities, innovators, researchers, educators, creatives, technologists, and cultural stewards working toward more ethical, inclusive, and regenerative futures. But because the future of heritage preservation will not only belong to isolated institutions alone, it will belong to collaborative ecosystems rooted in shared humanity. If culture is the campus, a living archive is where we begin to design them up. The archive lives, the future calls. Thank you for joining with us throughout the Living Archive May 2026 series. Good night from Kigali. Wherever you are, keep holding your culture. Keep bringing the story behind the knowledge, the practice to really bring in life those archives. And areas considering to run from your ancestors, your elders, so that you may be a meaningful career to the next generations. Thank you so much, whoever from the globe. And this is a living archive, May series end. And once more time, Dr. Alessandra, thank you so much for blessing this session. And if you don't have anything maybe to address to the global heritage preservationist ecosystem, we may say goodbye and gracias, signora, once again.
Goodbye. Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon or a lovely day, wherever you are.
Wow, thank you. Keep in touch, and thank you once again. See you in June for the Aboundless, breeding Aboundless ecosystem heritage preservationist. Thank you.